The red dust of Redstone Prime swirled around Jehoon Park as explosions tore through the air above him. He pressed his back against a broken concrete wall, his breathing coming in sharp, painful gasps. Blood soaked through his combat suit on the left side, and his medical scanner was flashing red warnings that he tried to ignore. The plasma blast had caught him during the retreat, burning through his armor like it was paper. Jehoon had been a combat medic for 2 years now, ever since the war with the Velkari Empire began. He had seen hundreds of wounded soldiers, patched up countless injuries, and held the hands of dying men and women who whispered their last words. But now he was alone in the ruins of an abandoned mining settlement, separated from his unit, and the irony was not lost on him. The healer could not heal himself. He tried to stand, but his legs would not cooperate. The pain in his side was spreading, turning into a cold numbness that frightened him more than the burning had. His suit's medical systems had failed 10 minutes ago, and without them, he knew his chances were slim. The colony around him was nothing but shattered buildings and scorched earth. The battle had moved on, leaving him behind in the silence. Through his blurred vision, Jehoon could see smoke rising from distant fires. The sky above was a strange orange color, filtered through the dust and chemicals that now filled the atmosphere. This planet had been beautiful once, or so the briefing said. Now it was just another graveyard, another place where humans and Velkari killed each other over resources neither side truly needed. His hand moved to the small photo in his chest pocket, the one picture he carried from Earth. His mother, his father, and his younger sister standing in front of their apartment in Seoul. They had been so proud when he joined the medical corps. They thought he would be safe, saving lives far from the front lines. If they could see him now, bleeding out in alien dirt, what would they think? The sound of footsteps made him freeze. They were light, careful, not the heavy boots of human soldiers. Velkari. Jehoon's hand moved weakly to his sidearm, but he knew he did not have the strength to use it. He had seen what Velkari soldiers did to wounded enemies. The propaganda videos played in every barracks, showing the brutality, the lack of mercy. He closed his eyes and waited for the end. The footsteps stopped a few meters away. Jehoon forced his eyes open and saw her standing there, silhouetted against the orange sky. She was tall, taller than any human, with skin that seemed to shimmer with a faint blue light. 4 arms hung at her sides, 2 holding weapons and 2 empty. Her face was angular and alien, with large amber eyes that studied him with an expression he could not read. Lieutenant Aaron had been on patrol for 6 hours, checking the ruins for any remaining human forces. Her orders were clear. Eliminate all enemy combatants, report any findings, return to base. She had followed these orders dozens of times before without question. But something about the human soldier slumped against the wall made her pause. She could see he was dying. The blood pooling beneath him was too much. The pallor of his skin too gray. Her tactical visor identified him as a combat medic based on the insignia on his damaged armor. Not a frontline fighter, a healer. Her people had words for healers, sacred words that went back thousands of years before they ever left their homeworld. Even in war, healers held a special place. Aaron's training told her to fire, to complete the mission, to move on. But her hand would not raise the weapon. She thought of her younger brother, Kale, who worked in a medical facility on their home world. She thought of the healers who had saved her life twice during this war. She thought of the order her commander had given just 3 days ago. "We are soldiers, not monsters, remember that." She made her decision in a heartbeat. Lowering her weapons, Aaron moved forward and knelt beside the human. He flinched, trying to move away. But he was too weak. She held up her empty hands in what she hoped was a universal gesture of peace. His eyes, dark brown and filled with pain, locked onto hers. Ji-hoon watched as the alien soldier scanned him with a device he did not recognize. The blue light washed over his body, and he saw her expression change. Even with her alien features, he could see something like concern cross her face. She made a decision, holstering her weapons and reaching for him with her 4 arms. He wanted to resist, wanted to fight, but his body would not obey. As she lifted him with surprising gentleness, Ji-hoon felt consciousness slipping away. The last thing he saw was the alien soldier carrying him through the ruins, moving quickly and purposefully toward some destination he could not see. The last thing he thought was that this was the strangest way to die he could have imagined. Aaron carried the human through the broken streets, her sensors constantly scanning for any patrols from either side. She knew a place, an old bunker beneath the settlement that her squad had discovered weeks ago. It was off the tactical maps, forgotten in the chaos of war. If she could get him there, if she could use her medical kit, she might be able to save him. The weight of what she was doing pressed down on her as heavily as the human soldier in her arms. This was treason. This was betrayal of her oath, her unit, her empire. If anyone discovered what she was doing, she would face execution. But as she looked down at the dying healer's face, peaceful now in unconsciousness, she knew she could not let him die. Not like this. Not when she had the power to save him. The entrance to the bunker was hidden beneath debris. Aaron cleared it away with 2 arms, while holding Ji-hoon with the other 2, then carried him down into the darkness. Emergency lights flickered on as she descended, revealing a small space with old equipment and supplies. It would have to do. She laid him carefully on a flat surface and immediately began pulling out her medical kit. The human's wounds were severe, worse than she had thought. Plasma burns were difficult to treat, even with advanced Velkari technology. But Aaron had trained for this, had spent years learning combat medicine. If she worked quickly, if she did not make any mistakes, she might be able to save him. As she began the delicate work of keeping the enemy soldier alive, Aaron wondered what had possessed her to make this choice. She wondered if she would regret it. But as her 4 hands moved with practiced precision, sealing wounds and repairing damage, she felt a strange sense of rightness. This was what her training was for. Not to kill, but to heal. Even if the life she was saving belonged to the enemy. The pain pulled Ji-hoon back to consciousness like a hook dragging him from deep water. He gasped, his eyes flying open, and immediately regretted it. Bright lights burned overhead, and everything in his body screamed in protest. But he was alive. That thought cut through the confusion and pain. He was alive when he should be dead. His vision slowly focused, and he saw her. The Velkari soldier sat a few meters away, her 4 arms working on some kind of equipment. Her luminescent skin cast a soft blue glow in the dim bunker, and he could see the concentration on her alien face. When she noticed his movement, she turned those large amber eyes toward him and made a sound that might have been words, but he understood nothing. Ji-hoon tried to sit up, and pain exploded through his torso. He cried out and fell back, breathing hard. The Velkari was beside him instantly, 2 of her hands pressing gently but firmly on his shoulders to keep him down, while her other 2 hands moved over his body with a scanner. She spoke again, her voice strange and musical, rising and falling in patterns that hurt his head to follow. He looked down at himself and saw that his combat suit had been removed. His side, where the plasma blast had nearly killed him, was covered in some kind of translucent material that pulsed with a faint light. Through it, he could see his skin, pink and new, like a baby's. The wound was healing, impossibly fast. Velkari medical technology. He had heard rumors about it, how advanced it was compared to human medicine, but seeing it work on his own body was something else entirely. The alien soldier seemed satisfied with whatever her scanner told her. She moved away and returned with a container of water. She held it out to him, waiting. Ji-hoon stared at it, his mind racing. Why was she doing this? Why had she saved him? What did she want? Every training video, every propaganda broadcast had taught him that the Velkari were monsters, that they took no prisoners, that they showed no mercy. Yet here he was, healed and given water by one of them. His throat was so dry it hurt. Slowly, carefully, he reached for the container. His hand shook as he brought it to his lips. The water was cool and clean, the best thing he had ever tasted. He drank too fast and coughed, and again she was there, one hand supporting his back while another steadied the container. The gesture was so familiar, so human, that it shocked him. When he finished drinking, she took the container and returned to her equipment. Jihoon watched her work, trying to make sense of his situation. The bunker was small and old, filled with abandoned supplies and covered in dust. It looked like it had not been used in years, a perfect hiding place. But hiding from whom? His people or hers? 3 days passed in a strange, silent routine. Aaron would check his wounds, bring him food and water, and work on her equipment in the corner. Jihoon remained weak, his body slowly recovering from the trauma. He watched her constantly, trying to understand her intentions, but she remained a mystery. Sometimes she would look at him with those amber eyes, and he thought he saw something like curiosity in them. Other times, she seemed troubled, her luminescent skin dimming slightly as if reflecting some inner struggle. On the 4th day, Jihoon woke to find her sitting closer than usual, a small device in one of her hands. She touched it, and a holographic display appeared in the air between them. He recognized it immediately as a translation device, far more advanced than anything the human military had. She pointed to herself and spoke slowly. Aaron, the device translated into perfect Korean, the voice synthetic but clear. She was telling him her name. Jihoon's heart raced. This was communication, real communication. He pointed to himself, his voice rough from disuse. Jihoon Park. Aaron repeated his name, her pronunciation strange but understandable. Then she pointed to the translation device and spoke at length. The device worked to process her words, displaying them as text before speaking. I saved your life. You were dying. I brought you here. You are safe. No one knows we are here. Jihoon absorbed this information, his mind whirling with questions. Why? He asked. Why did you save me? We are enemies. Aaron was silent for a long moment, and he wondered if the device was working. Then she spoke, and the translation came through. You are a healer. I saw your medical insignia. My people honor healers. I could not let you die. Your commanders will kill you for this, Jihoon said. It was not a question. He knew how military justice worked, and it was probably the same on both sides. Yes, Aaron said simply. If they discover this, I will die. But you will live. That is enough. Her words struck him like a physical blow. This alien soldier had committed treason, had thrown away her life to save his, a human, an enemy. The propaganda videos suddenly seemed like childish lies. Whatever the Velkari were, they were not the monsters he had been taught to fear. Over the following days, their communication improved. Aaron spent hours teaching the translation device his language patterns, and it became more accurate. They spoke in short sentences, simple words, but it was enough. Jihoon learned that she had a family, a younger brother named Kale, who worked as a medical assistant on her homeworld. She showed him pictures on her device, images of a planet with purple skies and vast silver oceans. Her family looked so normal, so ordinary, gathered together in what was clearly a home. They were smiling. In return, Jihoon told her about Earth, about Seoul, where towers of glass and steel reached toward the sky. He told her about his best friend Min-ho Choi, who had died in the first year of the war, blown apart by a Velkari missile strike. As he spoke, he saw sadness in Aaron's eyes, genuine sadness for a human she had never met. This war, she said one evening, her words coming slowly through the translator. "I do not understand why we fight. My commanders say you want to destroy us. Your commanders probably say the same about us. But you are not evil. You are just a man who heals the sick." "And you are just a woman who saved a life," Jihoon replied. "Maybe that is all we ever were, just people caught in something bigger than us." Aren taught him things during those weeks in the bunker. She showed him Velkari meditation techniques, methods her people used to stay calm in battle. She would sit with her forearms arranged in complex patterns, her breathing slow and rhythmic, and the luminescence of her skin would pulse in time with her heartbeat. When Jihoon tried to copy her, using only his two arms, she would adjust his position with gentle touches, and he would feel his racing heart begin to slow. In return, he made her laugh. It was a strange sound, higher pitched than human laughter, but unmistakable in its joy. He told her jokes, stupid jokes that soldiers told each other to keep from going mad. He described the absurdities of military life, the incompetent officers, and the ridiculous regulations. She understood it all because apparently the Velkari military was just as ridiculous as the human one. But their peace could not last forever. One night, Aren's communication device began to flash with urgent messages. She read them, and Jihoon saw her skin dim with what he had learned was her version of fear or distress. She looked at him, and even without the translator, he knew what she was going to say. "My unit is searching for me," she said. "They are coming to this area. I must respond or they will mark me as a deserter." She paused, her amber eyes fixed on him. "I could tell them about you. I could bring you to them as a prisoner. They would forgive me. I would be a hero." Jihoon felt his heart sink, but he nodded. "I understand. You have already done more than I could ever repay. If you need to turn me in to save yourself, I will not fight you." Aren was silent for a long time, so long that Jihoon thought she had decided. Then she reached for her communication device and, with one swift motion, crushed it beneath her hand. Sparks flew, and the device died. She looked at him, and there was something fierce and determined in her expression. "No," she said, "I will not give you to them. We will escape together, or we will die together. But I will not betray you." Jihoon stared at her, this alien soldier who had just committed the final act of treason for him. "Why?" he whispered. "Why would you do this?" Aren reached out with one hand and placed it gently over his heart. "Because you are a healer," she said. "You save lives. I saved yours. Now we are the same. And I think maybe this is what we both were always meant to do. Not kill, but save." In that moment, in the dim bunker beneath a war-torn world, Jihoon understood that the war had already lost. Because two soldiers from opposite sides had found something that no government, no empire, no military could destroy. They had found understanding, they had found friendship, and maybe, just maybe, they had found hope. The bunker became their world, a tiny pocket of peace while war raged above them. Every day brought new sounds of battle, distant explosions and the screaming of aircraft tearing through the atmosphere. Jihoon and Aren would sit in silence during these moments, listening to their respective armies destroy each other, knowing that both sides now considered them traitors. Jihoon's strength returned slowly. Within 2 weeks, he could stand without dizziness and walk without pain. The Velkari medical treatment had worked miracles, healing wounds that would have killed him or left him crippled using human medicine. He spent his time helping Aren organize their limited supplies and learning more about his unlikely savior. The translation device became their bridge. Aren had managed to salvage parts from her destroyed communicator to improve it, and now they could have actual conversations instead of exchanging simple words. It was during these talks that Jihoon began to see past the alien exterior to the person underneath. "Tell me about your family," Jihoon asked one evening as they shared a meal of military rations, a bland mix from both their supplies that somehow tasted better when eaten together. Aaron's skin brightened slightly, a sign Ji-hoon had learned meant happiness or pleasant memories. She pulled up images on her personal device, showing him pictures he had seen before, but now she added details. "This is Kale, my brother. He is younger than me by 6 years. He always wanted to be a healer even when we were children. When I would come home with scraped knees, he would cry and try to bandage them with leaves." Ji-hoon smiled at the image of a young Velkari child, so similar to human children in his awkward enthusiasm. "He sounds kind." "He is too kind for this universe," Aaron said, and there was worry in her voice. "I joined the military to protect people like him, people who see the good in everything, who want to help rather than hurt. I thought I was fighting to keep him safe." She paused, her amber eyes distant. "Now I do not know what I was fighting for." "I understand," Ji-hoon said quietly. He pulled out his own photo, the creased picture of his family. "My parents were so proud when I joined the medical corps. They thought it was the perfect job for me. I always wanted to help people, even as a kid. My friend Minho used to joke that I cried more than our patients did." "Minho," Aaron repeated, remembering the name. "The friend who died." "Yes. He was not a medic. He was a combat engineer, always building things or blowing them up. He made me laugh even in the worst situations." Ji-hoon's throat tightened. "He died saving his squad, holding a bridge while they escaped. They gave him a medal. His parents gave it back." Aaron reached out with one of her hands, letting it rest near his own in a gesture of comfort. "War takes the best of us first. The kind ones, the brave ones, the ones who would have built a better future." They sat in comfortable silence after that, two soldiers from opposite sides mourning all the lives this war had stolen. Outside, another explosion rumbled, but it felt distant, almost unreal compared to the reality of their shared grief. As days turned into weeks, their communication evolved beyond simple exchanges. Aaron taught Ji-hoon about Velkari culture, about the meditation practices her people used to maintain mental balance. Every morning, she would sit in her complex four-armed posture, her breathing controlled and deep, her skin pulsing with a steady rhythm like a second heartbeat. "It is called the harmony position," she explained when Ji-hoon asked to learn. "We use it to connect our mind, body, and spirit. In battle, it helps us stay calm when everything is chaos." Ji-hoon tried to mimic her posture with his two arms, feeling immediately inadequate. Aaron made that high-pitched sound that he had learned was laughter. "You are doing it wrong," she said, but her tone was gentle. She moved behind him, using her hands to adjust his position, straightening his back and positioning his arms correctly. Her touch was careful, almost clinical, but Ji-hoon felt his heart race anyway. "Better," she said. "Now breathe. In for 4 counts, hold for 4, out for 4, feel the rhythm." He tried, and surprisingly it worked. The constant anxiety that had been his companion since waking up in the bunker began to ease. His mind cleared, and for a few precious moments, he felt peace. When he opened his eyes, Aaron was watching him with an expression he could not quite read. "You learn quickly," she said, "for a human with only 2 arms." Ji-hoon laughed, really laughed, for the first time since the battle. "Well, we make do with what we have. Maybe you Velkari are just overachievers with your extra arms." This became their routine. Meditation in the mornings, sharing meals, telling stories of their lives before the war. Ji-hoon taught her about human humor, explaining jokes and sarcasm, concepts that did not translate well but that Aaron tried hard to understand. He told her about Earth's seasons, about summer rain and winter snow, things her world did not have. "It rains on my planet," Aaron said, "but the rain is silver and warm. It comes from the great ocean which covers half our world." When I was small, Kyle and I would dance in the silver rain, and our parents would watch from the window. That sounds beautiful, Jihoon said, trying to imagine it. It is. Or it was. I do not know if I will ever see it again. The sadness in her voice was clear, even through the translation device. You will, Jihoon said with more confidence than he felt. We will find a way out of this, both of us. But finding a way out seemed impossible. The bunker's supplies would not last forever, and every day brought the war closer. They could hear human and Velkari forces engaging in battles above them, the sounds of destruction their constant background. Aaron monitored the tactical frequencies, listening to reports from both sides, learning the patterns of patrol routes and combat operations. They are searching for us, she said one night, her skin dim with concern. Not directly, but both armies have deserter protocols. They will check every building, every bunker, every cave. Eventually they will find us. Jihoon knew she was right. They could not hide forever. What if we tried to reach neutral territory? Are there any zones where neither side operates? Aaron consulted her maps, her four hands moving across the holographic display. There are the dead zones, the places where the fighting was so intense that nothing survives. No patrols go there because there is nothing left to fight for. But crossing them would be dangerous. Radiation, unexploded weapons, collapsed structures. But possible? Jihoon pressed. Possible, Aaron admitted. There are rumors of a settlement beyond the dead zones, a place where deserters and refugees gather. I do not know if it is real or just a story soldiers tell themselves. A place where both humans and Velkari live together? Jihoon felt a flutter of hope. If it exists, that is where we need to go. Aaron looked at him, her amber eyes searching his face. It would be a hard journey. We might not survive. And if we do, we can never go home. We would be exiles forever. I know, Jihoon said. But what is home now? Earth will execute me as a deserter. Your world will do the same to you. We are already exiles. At least this way, we choose where to go. That night, they began planning their escape in earnest. Aaron used her military knowledge to map the safest routes through the dead zones. Jihoon used his medical expertise to prepare supplies for treating injuries they might sustain. They worked together with a coordination that surprised them both, their different skills complementing each other perfectly. During a break in planning, Jihoon asked the question that had been bothering him since he woke up. Aaron, do you regret it? Saving me? Throwing away your life for an enemy soldier? Aaron was quiet for a long moment, her forearms still as she considered the question. When she finally spoke, her words came slowly but with certainty. When I found you dying in those ruins, I had a choice. I could follow my orders and kill you, or I could follow my conscience and save you. I chose conscience. She looked directly at him. Every day since then, I have the same choice. Regret or acceptance. I choose acceptance. You are not my enemy, Jihoon Park. I do not know what you are, but you are not my enemy. Jihoon felt something shift in his chest, a warmth that had nothing to do with the bunker's temperature. You are not my enemy either, Aaron. You are my friend, maybe the best friend I have ever had. Aaron's skin brightened, glowing with that soft blue light that Jihoon had come to associate with her happiness. Friend, she repeated, testing the word. Yes, I like that word. Friend. They sat together in the dim bunker, two soldiers who had become friends across the vast divide of species and war. Outside, the battle continued, but in their small shelter, they had found something the war could not touch. They had found connection, understanding, and the beginnings of trust that would carry them through the dangerous journey ahead. Neither of them knew if they would survive the escape they were planning. Neither knew if the rumored settlement even existed. But they knew they would face whatever came together. and somehow that was enough. The alarm in Aaron's communication implant woke her suddenly. The device she had thought was dead still had one function active, the emergency recall system that could not be disabled without surgical removal. The pulsing alert filled her head with urgent commands, demanding her immediate return to her unit. Around her in the bunker, the emergency lights had activated, casting everything in harsh red light. Jihoon woke to the sound of her distressed breathing. He sat up quickly, his hand automatically reaching for a weapon he no longer carried. What is wrong? What is happening? Aaron's skin had gone pale, almost gray, her luminescence nearly extinguished. Two of her hands pressed against her temples, while the other two clenched into fists. My implant, the emergency recall, my unit is demanding I report immediately to the forward base. They have marked me as missing in action. If I do not respond within 6 hours, I will be marked as a deserter. Can you respond remotely? Tell them you are injured, that you are making your way back? Jihoon asked, his medical mind already working on solutions. I could, Aaron said slowly. The implant has limited communication capability for emergencies. I could tell them I am alive, that I was trapped by cave-in or equipment failure. They would believe it. These things happen in war. Then do it, Jihoon said, though the words felt like knives in his throat. Save yourself. You have already done more for me than anyone could ask. Aaron looked at him, her amber eyes reflecting the red emergency lights. And what happens to you? I would have to tell them where I am. They would send a team. They would find this bunker. They would find you. I can hide. I can run. I am strong enough now thanks to you. Jihoon forced himself to sound confident. You have given me a chance at life. Do not throw yours away because of me. You would not survive 3 days out there alone, Aaron said flatly. Human soldiers would shoot you thinking you are a Velkari sympathizer. My people would kill you on sight. You need me. And you need to live, Jihoon countered. Go back to your unit. Tell them you were trapped. No one needs to know about me. You can still have a life, a career, a future. Aaron stood abruptly, her 4 arms moving in agitation. She paced the small bunker, and Jihoon could see the war happening inside her. Duty versus conscience, orders versus morality, the life she knew versus the unknown path ahead. He understood that war intimately because he was fighting the same one inside himself. Part of him wanted her to go, to be safe. Another part could not bear the thought of losing her. I took an oath, Aaron said, speaking more to herself than to him. When I joined the military, I swore to protect my people, to follow orders, to be loyal to the Empire. These are not small promises. These are sacred vows. I know, Jihoon said softly. I took the same oath to my people. We both did. But Aaron, which people are you protecting by turning me in? Which people are you serving by going back to kill more humans who are just like me? Medics and engineers and scared kids who just want to go home? Aaron stopped pacing and turned to face him. Do not make this harder than it already is. I am not trying to make it hard. I am trying to make you see what I already see. You are not a mindless soldier. You think. You question. You saved my life because your conscience told you it was right, even though your orders told you to kill me. That conscience is telling you something now, too. My conscience is telling me I am a coward, Aaron said bitterly. That I am running from my duty because it has become inconvenient. That I am betraying everyone who depends on me. Jihoon stood, moving closer to her. Your conscience is telling you that maybe the real betrayal is continuing to fight a war that no one can explain. You said it yourself. You do not know why we fight. If the best of us do not know why we are killing each other, then what are we doing? Aaron's skin flickered, bright then dim, her emotional turmoil visible. You want me to abandon everything I have ever known, my unit, my career, my honor. No, Jihoon said firmly. I want you to save yourself, even if that means leaving me. But if you choose to come with me, it will not be abandoning your honor. It will be choosing a different kind of honor. The honor of staying true to yourself instead of true to orders that make no sense. The alarm in Aren's implant pulsed again, more urgent now. 4 hours remaining. She sat down heavily, her forearms hanging loose at her sides. If I go back, they will want to know where I have been. They will scan me for injuries, check my equipment logs, interrogate me. They are thorough. They will find inconsistencies. And even if they believe me, they will send me back to combat. Back to killing humans like you. And if you do not go back? Jihoon asked gently. Then I am a deserter. They will hunt me. Both our armies will hunt us. We will spend the rest of our lives running, hiding, always looking over our shoulders. We will never be safe, never be home. Jihoon knelt in front of her so their eyes were level. Aren, look at me. Where is home? For you, for me, where is home now? Can you go back to your planet knowing what you know? Can you look your brother Kale in the eye and tell him you killed human healers just like him? Can I go back to Earth and tell my parents I followed orders to shoot Velkari soldiers who might have families just like mine? Tears formed in Aren's large eyes, a clear liquid that reflected the red lights. Jihoon had not known Velkari could cry. She reached out with one hand and touched his face, her palm cool against his skin. You are asking me to choose you over everything I have ever known. No, Jihoon said, covering her hand with his own. I am asking you to choose yourself. Choose the person you are instead of the soldier they want you to be. I will be grateful for whatever you decide. If you need to go back to save yourself, I understand. I will never blame you for that. Aren was silent for a long time, her hand still on his face, his hand still covering hers. Finally, she spoke, her voice barely a whisper. When I was young, my mother told me a story. She said that long ago, before my people reached the stars, we had a great civil war. Brother fought brother, family fought family, and no one could remember why the fighting started. It continued for generations until one day a soldier from each side met in the ruins between their armies. They were both wounded, both dying. Instead of finishing each other, they helped each other. They walked together out of the war zone and told everyone who would listen that the war was pointless, that they had more in common than different. What happened to them? Jihoon asked. Both sides called them traitors. Both sides hunted them. But they started something that could not be stopped. More soldiers refused to fight. More people asked why they were killing each other. Eventually, the war ended not because one side won, but because too many people simply stopped fighting. Jihoon understood. You think we could do that? 2 soldiers stopping a war? I think we will not stop this war. This war is too big, too old, with too much hate built up. But maybe we can save ourselves from it. Maybe that is enough. Aren pulled her hand away and stood. She walked to her equipment and picked up the communication device she had partially destroyed weeks ago. The implant in her head pulsed again, 3 hours remaining. She looked at the device for a long moment, then at Jihoon, then back at the device. My commander once told me something, she said. He said that a soldier's greatest duty is not to follow orders, but to protect life. All life. He died in the next battle, killed by human artillery. I think he would understand what I am about to do. Before Jihoon could respond, Aren raised the communication device and smashed it completely, grinding it under her foot until it was nothing but fragments. Then she reached up with 2 of her hands and, with a sharp motion that made Jihoon wince, tore the communication implant from behind her ear. Blood, purple and bright, ran down her neck. She dropped the implant on the ground and crushed it too. There, she said, her voice steady despite the pain. Now they cannot track me. Now they cannot recall me. Now I am truly a deserter. Jihoon stared at her, shocked by the finality of what she had done. "Aaron, your implant. You are bleeding." "I am a soldier," she said. "I have had worse injuries. Besides, I have an excellent medic to patch me up." Despite everything, Jihoon laughed. He grabbed his medical kit, the human one he had kept, and quickly cleaned and bandaged her wound. His hands were shaking, and he realized he was terrified and exhilarated at the same time. She had chosen him. She had chosen them. She had thrown away everything for a chance at something neither of them could even name yet. When he finished treating her wound, Aaron looked at him seriously. "You understand what this means? We are both deserters now. Both our people will hunt us. We can never go back. We can only go forward, into the unknown." "I know," Jihoon said, "and I am scared. But I am also glad. Glad I will not face it alone. Glad you will be with me." Aaron's skin brightened, that blue luminescence returning stronger than before. "We should leave soon. Within hours they will send search teams. We need to be far from here before they arrive." They spent the next hour gathering supplies, planning their route, preparing for the dangerous journey ahead. As they worked, Jihoon felt something he had not felt in years. Hope. Real, genuine hope that life could be more than just war and death, and following orders that made no sense. As they prepared to leave the bunker that had been their shelter, Aaron stopped at the entrance and turned back to look at the small space. "This place saved us," she said quietly. "Both of us." "No," Jihoon said, standing beside her. "You saved us. You made the choice that mattered. Everything else came from that." Aaron looked at him, and for the first time she smiled in a way that was completely unguarded. "Then we saved each other, and now we will keep each other alive. Deal?" "Deal," Jihoon agreed. Together they climbed out of the bunker into the uncertain world above. Two deserters fleeing into the darkness, carrying nothing but hope and each other. The dead zone stretched before them like a nightmare made real. What had once been farmland was now a wasteland of scorched earth, twisted metal, and the skeletal remains of buildings. The air itself seemed poisoned, thick with chemical residue that made breathing difficult even through their filtered masks. Jihoon and Aaron moved carefully through the ruins, knowing that one wrong step could trigger unexploded ordnance buried beneath the ash. They had been traveling for 3 days since leaving the bunker, moving only at night, hiding during the day in whatever shelter they could find. The dead zone was supposed to be empty, but they could not afford to be careless. Patrols from both sides occasionally swept the perimeter, and automated drones still flew overhead, their sensors searching for any signs of life. Jihoon's legs ached from the constant walking, and despite Aaron's healing, his body still remembered the trauma of nearly dying. But he pushed forward, matching Aaron's pace, refusing to slow them down. She carried most of their supplies with her 4 arms, a weight that would have crushed him, but that she managed with barely a sign of effort. "We should rest," Aaron said, pointing to the remains of what looked like an old storage facility. "The sun will rise in an hour. We need to be hidden before then." They entered the building carefully, checking for structural damage and hidden dangers. Inside, they found a corner that offered some protection from the elements and settled in. Jihoon pulled out their water rations and shared them equally, while Aaron checked her scanner for any signs of nearby patrol activity. "Nothing yet," she said, her skin dim with exhaustion. "But we are only halfway through the dead zone. The next 3 days will be harder." Jihoon nodded, too tired to speak. They ate in silence, the bland military rations tasting like dust in his mouth. When they finished, Aaron leaned back against the wall, 2 of her arms wrapped around herself for warmth, while the other 2 lay relaxed at her sides. Jihoon noticed the way her luminescence flickered weakly. A sign he had learned meant she was pushing herself too hard. "You need to sleep," he said. "I will keep watch." You need sleep too, Aaron argued. You are still recovering. I am fine, and I have 2 arms to your 4. You need more rest than I do. He tried to make it sound like a joke, but the concern in his voice was obvious. Aaron smiled slightly. That is not how biology works, but I appreciate the thought. She paused, then shifted closer to him, close enough that he could feel the slight warmth her body radiated. We could both rest. Set an alert for any movement. The scanner will wake us if anything approaches. Jihoon hesitated, then nodded. The truth was he was exhausted beyond measure, and the thought of proper sleep was almost painful in its appeal. Aaron set up the scanner between them, adjusting its sensitivity, then settled back against the wall. Jihoon did the same, and despite his best intentions, sleep claimed him within minutes. He woke to Aaron's hand on his shoulder, shaking him gently. Sunlight was streaming through cracks in the damaged walls, and he could hear something that made his blood run cold. Voices. Human voices, speaking in Korean, coming from somewhere outside their shelter. Aaron put a finger to where her lips would be if she had human features, a gesture she had learned from him. They both froze, barely breathing, as the voices grew closer. Jihoon recognized the accent, the casual military slang. A patrol unit, probably doing a sweep of the area. He wondered if they were looking specifically for deserters or just doing routine reconnaissance. This place is clear, one voice said. Nothing but rats and radiation. I do not know why Command thinks anyone would hide here. Orders are orders, another voice responded, older and female. We check every structure, no matter how unlikely. Besides, better to waste time here than get shot at the front lines. The voices moved past their building, and Jihoon allowed himself to breathe again, but Aaron's expression was tense, her skin pale. She gestured urgently to her scanner, and Jihoon saw the problem immediately. More signatures were approaching from the other direction. Velkari signatures. The 2 patrol units were converging on their location. They had minutes at most before both patrols discovered them. Aaron looked at Jihoon, and he could see her military training taking over, calculating odds and options. She pointed to a collapsed section of wall at the back of the building, a gap just large enough for them to squeeze through if they moved quickly. But before they could move, the human patrol changed direction. Jihoon heard the leader's voice, sharp with sudden alertness. Hold position. I am picking up thermal signatures in that building. Could be survivors or could be Velkari. Either way, we need to check it out. They were out of time. Jihoon grabbed Aaron's arm and pulled her toward the gap in the wall. They squeezed through just as the human patrol reached the front entrance. Behind them, they could hear the Velkari unit approaching as well. They were caught between 2 armies, both of which wanted them dead. The gap led to a narrow alley filled with debris. Aaron took the lead, her military senses far sharper than Jihoon's. They moved quickly but carefully, trying to put distance between themselves and the converging patrols. Behind them, Jihoon heard shouts of alarm as the 2 units discovered each other. Weapons fire erupted, plasma blasts and kinetic rounds filling the air with deadly light and sound. They ran, using the battle as cover, dodging through ruins and leaping over obstacles. Jihoon's lungs burned and his legs felt like they would give out. But terror kept him moving. Aaron stayed close, occasionally pulling him down behind cover when weapons fire came too close, her reflexes saving his life again and again. After what felt like hours but was probably only minutes, they found themselves at the edge of a massive crater, the result of some terrible weapon used in an earlier battle. The crater was hundreds of meters across, its sides steep and treacherous. Behind them, the sounds of fighting continued, but both patrols would finish their battle soon and might come looking for whoever had triggered their confrontation. We have to cross it, Aaron said, breathing hard. It is the only way to lose them. Jihoon looked at the crater and felt his stomach drop. The bottom was filled with dark water, contaminated and poisonous. The sides were unstable. covered in loose rocks and debris that could trigger a slide at any moment. It was a death trap. "We do not have a choice," Aaron said, reading his expression. "They will scan the area soon. This crater's radiation will mask our signatures if we get to the other side." She was right, and Jihoon knew it. He nodded, and they began the descent. Aaron used her forearms to brace herself against the crater's side, finding purchase where Jihoon saw none. She would move ahead, test the path, then signal for him to follow. It was slow, terrifying work, and twice Jihoon lost his footing and nearly fell, only to be caught by one of Aaron's quick hands. They were halfway down when they heard voices at the crater's edge. The human patrol had won the fight with the Velkari unit and was now searching for whoever had led them into the ambush. Jihoon and Aaron pressed themselves flat against the crater wall, hoping the rocks would hide them from view. "Sergeant Hyejin Nam, do you see anything?" a voice called out. Jihoon's heart stopped. He knew that name. Hyejin Nam had been part of his unit before his injury, a veteran soldier with more combat experience than anyone else in the company. She was tough, smart, and utterly loyal to the human cause. If anyone could spot them, it would be her. "Scanning now," Hyejin's voice responded, calm and professional. There was a pause, and Jihoon could almost feel her eyes sweeping over their hiding place. He did not dare to breathe. Beside him, Aaron's skin had gone completely colorless, her natural camouflage responding to the danger. "I have got thermal signatures," Hyejin said, and Jihoon's world seemed to collapse. "Two of them, halfway down the crater on the east side." They were caught. There was nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. Jihoon looked at Aaron and saw his own acceptance reflected in her eyes. They had gambled and lost, but before they could surrender, Hyejin spoke again. "Wait, I am reading them as contaminated. Probably just residual heat from destroyed equipment, or maybe animals mutated by the radiation. This whole crater is hot with interference." Another voice spoke up. "Should we check it out?" There was a long pause. Then Hyejin said, "Negative. The readings are too unstable and we do not have contamination suits. Mark it as cleared and let us move on. If there was anyone here, the radiation probably killed them already." Jihoon could not believe what he was hearing. Hyejin Nam was lying, covering for them. But why? She had to know they were human and Velkari working together. She had to understand what that meant. The patrol moved away, their voices fading into the distance. Jihoon and Aaron remained frozen for several more minutes, afraid to move, afraid to believe they were safe. Finally, Aaron touched his arm and gestured downward. They continued their descent, reaching the bottom of the crater as the sun began to set. The climb up the other side was even more difficult than the descent. Jihoon's arms were shaking with exhaustion, and even Aaron's incredible strength was beginning to fail, but they pushed on, driven by the knowledge that they were so close to escaping the dead zone. As they finally pulled themselves over the crater's far edge, Jihoon collapsed on solid ground, gasping for breath. Aaron lay beside him, all four arms sprawled out, her luminescence barely visible. "That's Sergeant," she said quietly. "She knew we were there. She protected us." "I know," Jihoon said. "Hyejin Nam. She served with me before I got wounded. She was always the best of us, always questioning orders that made no sense. I think maybe she has been having the same doubts we have." "Do you think there are others like her? Like us?" Aaron asked. Jihoon thought about it. "I think there must be. Soldiers on both sides who are tired of fighting, who see no sense in the war, who want it to end. Maybe there are more than we know. Maybe we are not as alone as we think." They rested for a few minutes, then forced themselves to keep moving. The dead zone was behind them now, but they were still days away from the rumored settlement where deserters and refugees gathered. As they walked through the twilight, Jihoon found himself thinking about Hyejin Nam and her choice to let them escape. It gave him hope that maybe the war was already ending, one soldier at a time, one act of mercy at a time. Beside him, Aaron seemed to be thinking similar thoughts. "When this is over," she said, "if we survive, I would like to meet this Sergeant Hyejin Nam and thank her." "When this is over," Jihoon agreed. "Not if, when." They continued into the darkness, two deserters carrying more than just their own survival. They carried hope that peace was possible, that understanding could bridge any divide, and that mercy was stronger than any weapon. Behind them, the war raged on, but ahead of them lay the promise of something better. And for now, that promise was enough to keep them moving forward. The rumor had been right. Haven Station existed, though calling it a station was generous. Built into the hollowed interior of a massive asteroid, it was more of a collection of connected habitats, salvaged ships and makeshift structures than a proper settlement. But to Jihoon and Aaron, exhausted and running low on supplies after 8 days of travel, it looked like paradise. They had been challenged at the perimeter by a guard named Gina, a human woman with scars across her face and eyes that had seen too much war. When she saw Jihoon and Aaron together, she had simply nodded, unsurprised, and sent a message ahead. Within minutes, they were being escorted through the twisted corridors of the station, past people of both species who barely glanced at them. Here, apparently, the sight of humans and Velkari together was unremarkable. Their escort, a young Velkari male with nervous energy, brought them to what appeared to be a command center. Inside, 2 people waited for them. One was a human man in his 40s with military bearing that no amount of civilian clothes could hide. The other was a Velkari engineer, judging by the complex tool harness attached to her body. "Welcome to Haven," the human man said in Korean, then repeated it in Velkari language. "My name is Dae-hyun Lee. I was a captain in the human fleet before I decided the war was not worth my soul. This is Vel. She was an engineer in the Velkari military before she refused to build weapons anymore." He gestured to seats. "Please sit. You both look like you have traveled far." As they sat, Jihoon felt something release in his chest. They were safe, actually safe. He looked at Aaron and saw her skin beginning to brighten again, the color returning after days of stress-induced dimming. "How did you find us?" Vel asked, her voice melodic through the translation device on the table. "We heard rumors," Aaron said. "Stories soldiers tell about a place where deserters can go, where the war does not matter. We hoped it was real." "It is real," Dae-hyun said, "though it is not what most people expect. We have about 200 people here now, roughly half human and half Velkari. We have deserters, refugees, conscientious objectors, even a few civilians who escaped the war zones. We survive by salvaging, trading with neutral parties, and staying off both militaries' sensors." "But why?" Jihoon asked. "Why create this place? Why risk everything?" Dae-hyun and Vel exchanged a look, and something unspoken passed between them. Then Dae-hyun spoke. "I lost my ship in a battle near the edge of the frontier. Most of my crew died. I survived by floating in an escape pod for 3 days. When a ship finally found me, it was a Velkari medical vessel. They should have killed me or taken me prisoner. Instead, they saved my life and dropped me at a neutral port." He paused. "I could not go back after that. Could not keep fighting people who showed me more mercy than my own command ever had." Vel continued the story. "I was ordered to design a weapon that would have poisoned an entire human colony world. Millions of civilians would have died. I refused. They threw me in prison. Dae-hyun helped me escape." The way she said his name, the way her skin brightened slightly, told Jihoon everything he needed to know about their relationship. "We found this asteroid together," Dae-hyun said. "Started building Haven one piece at a time. Others found us, people who had their own reasons for leaving the war. Now, we are a community. And both militaries just let you exist? Aaron asked, skeptical. They do not know we exist, Vel explained. This asteroid is in a dense field that interferes with most scanning equipment. Our energy signatures are minimal. We look like just another piece of space debris on long-range scans. As long as we stay hidden and do not interfere with the war, we are safe. Over the following days, Jehoon and Aaron began to integrate into life at Haven Station. They were given a small living space, barely large enough for 2 people but private and secure. More importantly, they were given work. The station desperately needed medical personnel, and Jehoon's skills were immediately put to use. The medical bay was a strange mixture of human and Velkari equipment, patched together by clever engineering and desperation. On his first day, Jehoon treated a human woman with radiation poisoning, a Velkari male with a broken appendage, and a child, human, with a fever. It was the child that broke something open inside him. He had not treated a child since before the war, had forgotten what it felt like to help someone who had no part in the fighting. Aaron joined him in the medical bay the next day, offering her expertise. At first, the human patients were nervous around her, and the Velkari patients seemed confused that one of their own would work alongside a human. But Aaron's competence was undeniable. Her 4 hands could perform tasks that would require multiple human medical staff, and her knowledge of Velkari medicine was invaluable. Together, they became an effective team. Jehoon's understanding of human physiology combined with Aaron's advanced medical technology created treatment options neither species had alone. Within a week, they had improved the medical bay's survival rate by 40%. Within 2 weeks, patients stopped asking whether their doctor was human or Velkari and just cared that they were getting better. One evening, after a long shift, Jehoon and Aaron sat in their small quarters, sharing a meal of station rations that somehow tasted better than anything they had eaten in the dead zone. Aaron was teaching him words in her language, simple phrases that the translation device could not quite capture. "This word," she said, making a complex sound that Jehoon tried to imitate, "means something like companion through hardship. We do not have a direct human translation. It means someone who stands beside you when everything is difficult, who shares the burden, who does not leave even when leaving would be easier." Jehoon tried the word again, his pronunciation terrible, and Aaron's high-pitched laugh filled their small space. "Close enough," she said. "You are improving." "What word would you use for us?" Jehoon asked. "What are we to each other?" Aaron considered this carefully. "In my language, we would be called kashrin. It means 2 people who are bound together by choice and circumstance, who have walked through fire together and emerged changed. It is more than friends, more than comrades. It is its own thing." "Kashrin," Jehoon repeated, getting it right this time. "I like that. We are Kashrin." Aaron's skin brightened with happiness, and in that moment, in that tiny room on a hidden asteroid, Jehoon felt more at home than he had in years, not because of the place, but because of the person beside him. Their peace was interrupted by a sudden alarm blaring through the station. Jehoon and Aaron rushed to the command center, where Daehyun and Vel were frantically working controls. On the main screen, they could see a ship, badly damaged, drifting toward the asteroid field. "It is a diplomatic vessel," Vel said, her voice tense. "Both human and Velkari aboard. They were ambushed by extremists from one side or the other. We cannot tell which. The ship is failing. They are requesting emergency assistance." "Can we risk it?" someone in the crowd asked. "If we reveal ourselves to help them, both militaries might discover our location." Daehyun looked at the screen, then at the gathered crowd. "We have a choice. We can hide and let them die, keeping ourselves safe. Or we can help and risk everything we have built. I will not order anyone to take that risk. But I am going out there. Anyone who wants to join me is welcome." Jehoon stepped forward immediately. I am a medic. If there are wounded, I can help. Aaron moved beside him. I go where he goes. We are Kashran. Others stepped forward too, human and Velkari alike, volunteers ready to risk their lives for strangers. Within minutes, a rescue team was assembled and heading out in a salvaged shuttle. As they approached the damaged diplomatic vessel, Jehoon could see how bad it was. The ship had been hit by multiple weapons, its hull breached in several places, life support failing. They docked and entered quickly. Inside was chaos. Bodies floating in zero gravity, injured people crying out for help, and the smell of blood and burned electronics filling the air. Jehoon and Aaron moved through the wreckage with practiced efficiency, triaging the wounded, separating those who could be saved from those who could not. One of the wounded was a human woman in a diplomat's uniform, her name tag reading Ambassador Sora Kim. She had severe internal injuries and was barely conscious. Nearby, a Velkari official was in similar condition, his forearms limp and his skin almost gray. According to the damaged identification on his uniform, his name was Counselor Wren. "These two first," Jehoon said. "They are VIPs. We need to keep them alive." For the next hours, Jehoon and Aaron worked together in perfect synchronization. They used human techniques and Velkari technology, combining their knowledge in ways neither species had considered before. Aaron's 4 hands held organs in place, while Jehoon sealed blood vessels. Jehoon's understanding of human anatomy guided Aaron's use of advanced healing tools. They saved lives that should have been impossible to save. When Ambassador Sora Kim opened her eyes, the first thing she saw was a Velkari soldier working on her injuries with incredible care. When Counselor Wren regained consciousness, a human medic was monitoring his vital signs with absolute focus. Both diplomats were too weak to speak, but their eyes said everything. Back at Haven Station, the rescued diplomats were placed in the medical bay. As they recovered over the following days, they observed something remarkable. Human and Velkari medical staff working together. Human and Velkari families sharing meals. Human and Velkari children playing together in the corridors. Everything their government said was impossible, happening naturally, without conflict, without hatred. 1 week after the rescue, Ambassador Sora Kim asked to speak with Jehoon and Aaron. They met in a private room, the ambassador still weak but healing well. Counselor Wren was there too, his color returning, his 4 arms regaining their strength. "You saved our lives," Sora Kim said without preamble. "A human medic and a Velkari soldier working together. I have been negotiating peace for 2 years. And I have never seen cooperation like what you two demonstrated." Counselor Wren nodded. "I was taught that humans were brutal, that they could not be trusted, that peace was impossible. Then a human medic spent hours saving my life while a Velkari soldier assisted him. How can I continue to believe the lies when the truth is sitting in front of me?" "We are not special," Jehoon said quietly. "We are just 2 people who chose to see each other as people instead of enemies. There must be thousands of soldiers on both sides who would do the same if given the chance." "Then we must give them that chance," Sora Kim said with determination. "Counselor Wren and I have discussed this. We want to hold peace talks here, at Haven Station. Real talks, not the political theater we have been performing. We want both sides to see what you have built, to understand that coexistence is not just possible but natural, when we stop letting fear and propaganda control us." Aaron looked at Jehoon, and he could see the hope and fear warring in her expression. This was bigger than them now. This was the chance they had barely dared to dream about, the chance to turn their small act of mercy into something that could end the war. "We will help however we can," Jehoon said, speaking for both of them. "But you should know, we are deserters. Both our militaries want us dead. We cannot speak for anyone but ourselves." You speak for more than you know, Counselor Wren said. You speak for every soldier tired of fighting, every family tired of losing loved ones, every person who sees no sense in this war. Your actions have already spoken volumes. Now we need to amplify that voice so everyone can hear it. That night, as Jehoon and Aaron lay in their small quarters, they talked about what was coming, the risks, the possibilities, the fear that it might all fall apart. But mostly they talked about hope. Hope that their choice to save each other had started something unstoppable. Hope that mercy could be stronger than weapons. Hope that the war might actually end, not through victory, but through understanding. Whatever happens, Aaron said, her hand finding his in the darkness. We did something that mattered. We proved peace is possible. We did, Jehoon agreed, holding her hand tightly. And tomorrow, we help others see it too. 3 weeks after the rescue, Haven Station buzzed with unprecedented activity. Ambassador Sora Kim and Counselor Wren had convinced their respective governments to send delegations for preliminary peace talks. The official story was that they would meet at a neutral station deep in unexplored space. The truth was that they would meet at Haven, the hidden sanctuary built by deserters and refugees. It was a calculated risk that could either end the war or destroy everything the station's residents had built. Jehoon stood in the newly expanded medical bay, checking supplies for the 10th time. His hands were shaking slightly, not from fear but from the weight of what was about to happen. Beside him, Aaron organized equipment with her 4 arms, her skin flickering with nervous energy. "Do you think they will see what we see?" Jehoon asked quietly. "Or will they just see deserters and traitors?" Aaron paused in her work and looked at him. "I think they will see what they want to see. Some will see hope, some will see threat. But it does not matter what they see at first. What matters is what we show them through our actions." Before Jehoon could respond, Daehyun's voice echoed through the station's communication system. "All personnel, the delegations are arriving. Please continue with your normal duties. Show them who we are by being who we are." Within an hour, Haven Station transformed. Human and Velkari officials walked through corridors where human and Velkari families lived side by side. They saw children of both species playing together, their laughter universal, regardless of language. They observed mixed crews working on repairs, communicating through translation devices and hand signals, solving problems together that neither could solve alone. The official talks were held in the largest chamber Haven possessed, a converted cargo bay now set up with tables and chairs. Jehoon and Aaron were not part of the negotiations. They were medical staff, not diplomats. But they were nearby, always visible, a living reminder of why these talks were happening. On the 3rd day of negotiations, disaster struck. A human extremist group opposed to any peace with the Velkari had tracked the diplomatic vessel's distress beacon. They had found Haven Station and launched an attack. Their goal was simple: kill the diplomats, destroy the talks, ensure the war continued. The attack was sudden and brutal. Missiles struck the station's outer sections, breaching hulls and exposing residents to the vacuum of space. Emergency alarms screamed through every corridor. Jehoon grabbed his medical kit and ran toward the damaged sections, Aaron right behind him. The scene was horrific. Injured people everywhere, both human and Velkari, crying out for help. Jehoon's training took over, pushing aside fear and horror, focusing only on what needed to be done. He moved from patient to patient, making rapid assessments, deciding who could be saved and who was beyond help. It was the worst part of being a medic, the calculations that reduced lives to numbers and probabilities. Aaron worked beside him, her 4 hands moving with incredible speed, sealing wounds, administering medicine, keeping people alive through sheer force of will. Around them, Station security fought off the attackers, while residents tried to evacuate the damaged sections. It was chaos controlled only by the bravest and the most skilled. Then word came that made Jihoon's blood run cold. Ambassador Sora Kim and Counselor Ren had been in one of the sections hit hardest by the attack. Both were critically wounded and trapped under collapsed debris. Without immediate medical attention, they would die within minutes. Jihoon and Aaron ran toward the damaged section, dodging falling debris and leaping over torn metal. They found the two diplomats pinned under a collapsed support beam, blood pooling around them. Sora Kim was unconscious, her breathing shallow and irregular. Counselor Ren was awake but fading, his luminescent skin almost completely dark. "We need to move this beam," Jihoon said, his mind racing through options. "But if we move it wrong, we could make their injuries worse." "Then we move it right," Aaron said with determination. She positioned her forearms around the beam while Jihoon prepared to pull the diplomats free the moment they were clear. "On 3. 1, 2, 3. Aaron lifted with all her strength, her skin brightening with the effort. Jihoon pulled Sora Kim free first, her body limp and broken. Then Counselor Ren, whose amber eyes fixed on Jihoon with an expression of gratitude and pain. Aaron lowered the beam carefully and immediately moved to help Jihoon assess the injuries. They were bad. Worse than bad. Both diplomats had multiple fractures, internal bleeding, and damage to critical organs. With the station's medical bay damaged in the attack, they had only the equipment they had brought with them. It would have to be enough. Jihoon looked at Aaron and she looked back at him. No words were needed. They had done this before, the impossible task of keeping someone alive against all odds. They would do it again. What happened next would later be described by witnesses as a miracle, though Jihoon and Aaron would always insist it was just medicine practiced with skill and desperation. They worked in perfect harmony, their hands moving in synchronization, anticipating each other's needs before words could be spoken. Jihoon's knowledge of human and Velkari anatomy combined with Aaron's advanced medical technology. They used techniques neither species had developed alone, improvising solutions that textbooks would later study. Other medical staff arrived and tried to help, but Jihoon and Aaron waved them away. They knew these patients, had treated them before, understood their specific physiologies. More hands would just get in the way, so others watched in amazement as a human medic and a Velkari soldier saved the lives of the two most important people in the galaxy. Hours passed. The attack was repelled, the extremists captured or killed. The station's emergency crews began repairs while security established a stronger perimeter. But in the makeshift medical area, Jihoon and Aaron continued their work, refusing to stop until both patients were stable. When Sora Kim finally took a strong, steady breath on her own, when Counselor Ren's skin began to brighten again with returning health, Jihoon felt his legs give out. He collapsed against a wall, his hands shaking uncontrollably, his body finally acknowledging the stress and fear he had been suppressing for hours. Aaron sat beside him, all four arms wrapped around herself, her luminescence flickering weakly. "We did it," she whispered. "They are going to live." "We did it," Jihoon agreed, his voice breaking. Then, to his surprise, he started to cry. Not from sadness, but from relief, from exhaustion, from the overwhelming emotion of having saved lives that mattered so much. Aaron reached out with one hand and touched his face, wiping away his tears with surprising gentleness. "You are a good healer, Jihoon Park," she said softly. "The best I have ever known." "We are good healers," he corrected. "Together. Neither of us could have saved them alone." Over the next week, as the diplomats recovered, something fundamental shifted in the peace talks. Sora Kim and Counselor Ren had been saved by the very cooperation their governments claimed was impossible. They had witnessed firsthand what humans and Velkari could achieve when they worked together instead of against each other. More importantly, every delegate had seen it too. The delegates walked through Haven Station and saw a functioning society, where war was a distant memory. They saw human and Velkari engineers collaborating on repairs. They saw mixed medical teams treating all patients equally. They saw children of both species learning together, playing together, dreaming together. They saw the future, and it worked. When Sora Kim was strong enough to leave the medical bay, she asked to speak with Ji-hoon and Aaron. They met in the same private room where they had spoken before, but this time the atmosphere was different. The ambassador's eyes were bright with purpose, and Counselor Wren stood beside her with renewed determination. "You saved us again," Sora Kim said. "But more than that, you showed everyone watching what peace actually looks like, not treaties and signatures and political compromises. Real peace. People choosing to help each other regardless of which species they belong to." Counselor Wren nodded, his four arms gesturing expressively. "The delegates have agreed to a ceasefire, not because of arguments or negotiations, but because they cannot deny what they have witnessed here. You two, deserters that both our militaries want to execute, have accomplished more for peace than all of us diplomats combined." "We just did our jobs," Ji-hoon said, uncomfortable with the praise. "We are medics. We heal people. That is all." "That is everything," Sora Kim said firmly. "Every soldier who refuses to kill, every person who chooses compassion over hatred, every act of mercy in a universe full of violence, that is how wars actually end. Not with surrender, but with soldiers like you deciding there is a better way." The ceasefire was announced 3 days later. It was tentative, fragile, and many on both sides opposed it. But it held. Slowly, carefully, the fighting stopped. Soldiers on both sides lowered their weapons and looked at each other across the front lines, seeing not enemies, but people as tired and scared as themselves. Haven Station became a symbol of what peace could look like. Delegations from both governments visited regularly, observing the community, learning from its example. Some came as skeptics and left as believers. Others came hoping to find weakness, and instead found strength in the diversity and cooperation. Ji-hoon and Aaron continued their work in the medical bay, treating anyone who needed help regardless of species or background. They became something they had never intended to be. Symbols of hope, proof that understanding could bridge any divide. It was uncomfortable sometimes, being watched and studied, but they endured it because the alternative was worse. The alternative was going back to war. 6 months after the ceasefire began, formal peace treaties were signed. The war was officially over. Haven Station was granted recognition as an independent entity, a place where those who could not or would not return to their home worlds could build new lives. It was not perfect. Tensions remained, but it was peace. One evening, Ji-hoon and Aaron stood at one of the station's viewports, looking out at the stars. So much had changed since that day Aaron found him dying in the ruins. They had both given up everything, their careers, their homes, their old lives, for a chance at something better. And somehow, impossibly, it had worked. "Do you ever regret it?" Ji-hoon asked. "Everything we sacrificed to get here?" Aaron was quiet for a moment, her hand finding his and holding it gently. "I regret that I cannot see my family without risking arrest. I regret that we can never go home. But I do not regret saving you. I do not regret the choice we made, because look what it created." She gestured to the station around them, to the humans and Velkari passing by in peaceful coexistence. "We helped start this. Our choice to see each other as people instead of enemies, that mattered." It did, Ji-hoon agreed. He thought about all the lives they had saved, not just with medicine, but with their example. He thought about the children growing up on Haven Station, who would never know the hatred that had defined their parents' generation. He thought about Sergeant Hyejin Nam, who had let them escape, and wondered if she had found her own peace. "What do we do now?" Aaron asked. "The war is over. What comes next?" Ji-hoon smiled. "We keep doing what we have always done. We heal people. We help them. We show them that different does not mean enemy. We live the life we chose." "Kashrin," Aaron said, using the word from her language. "We are Kashrin, bound together by choice and circumstance, changed by fire, made into something new." "Kashrin," Ji-hoon repeated, the pronunciation perfect now after months of practice. "Yes, that is what we are, and that is enough." They stood together at the viewport, watching ships arrive and depart, bringing more people seeking refuge, seeking hope, seeking proof that peace was possible. The station around them hummed with life and activity, a testament to what could be achieved when people chose understanding over fear. The war was over, but the real work was just beginning. The work of building trust, of healing wounds both physical and emotional, of creating a future where species lines meant as little as the imaginary borders nations drew on maps. It would take generations, and it would never be perfect. But it would be worth it. Ji-hoon and Aaron had started as enemies, become friends, and now stood as something more. They were healers, teachers, symbols, and most importantly, partners who had chosen each other when the universe said they should be adversaries. Their story would be told and retold, inspiring others to make the same choice, to see humanity in those deemed inhuman, to find connection across impossible divides. And in a small medical bay on a hidden station, 2 hands and 4 hands continued to work together, saving lives and building peace one patient at a time. It was not the ending either of them had expected. It was better. It was hope made real. It was proof that even in the darkest times, mercy could triumph over violence, and that a single act of compassion could change the entire galaxy. The alien woman had brought the wounded human man back to life. They had both been soldiers from enemy worlds. But in the end, they were just 2 people who chose to heal instead of hurt, to build instead of destroy, to love instead of hate. And that choice had made all the difference.